blah, 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 blah.
Welcome to the Our Forever Smiles podcast, a podcast created to support mothers of children who were born with clefts and those who love them. I'm your host, Laura Arroyo, and I'm also a mother of a daughter who was born with a surprise cleft palate. I know the challenges you face every day. Whether you have just learned the difficult news of your baby's cleft lip or palate, you're in the midst of pre-op or post-op, or you're an OG cleft mom, this podcast is for you. In a weekly conversation, we will talk about everything from feeding and speech therapy to surgery and school. We'll share tips from guest experts and advocates and even share a little joy in the process. You can listen to Our Forever Smiles wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. I am Laura Arroyo. Before we jump into this episode, I would like to invite you to hear conversations with other cleft moms and advocates and cleft affected individuals that will help you feel supported along your journey. All I want you to do is click on the follow or subscribe button. I love your support, and it's incredible to see us all come together as a community. So thank you in advance for subscribing. We have so much in store for you this year. As a note, we are not medical doctors, and we do not intend for you to use information that we share here as medical advice. We are parents and advocates who love our children, and we are just sharing our own personal experiences. Today, I have had the pleasure of briefly watching Sam, our guest today, speak at CleftCon. So really excited to have him on the podcast today. Sam was born in Varna, Bulgaria, and adopted in 1996. He grew up in the DC area, is now in Newark, Delaware, has past work experience in the NHL, ECHL, and Division I hockey, featured in the book Family by Choice by Elaine White, and currently on the CCSC board for Smile Train. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. It's a real honor.
Thank you. I am glad to have you on today. As I mentioned, I first saw you and got a glimpse into your journey at CleftCon, but I actually I feel like that was the only time I saw you. Did you go to the was it like the happy hour stuff, or the day before they had like a meet and greet type of thing?
Yeah, I couldn't go to the meet and greet. That was the whole crazy airplane hoopla. That's its own story right there. What should have been a 4 or 5 hour flight became like an 18-hour day.
Yeah.
So I know my dad and I almost couldn't get tickets. We woke up I happened to wake up like 6:30 in the morning, and I saw the cancellation, and I woke him up. Otherwise, we were going to wake up like 7:30. And if I didn't do that, we would have missed the last chances of our tickets, really. And so I just happened to get it and grab the ticket to transfer for a cancellation of that whole national technology shutdown. And that's how we were able to actually get it last minute, but we couldn't leave until almost 2 or something like that, instead of 8 or 9:30 in the morning. So that way we could actually go to that meetup Friday night. Then we had delays a couple of times, from staffing issues to actual issues with the plane itself.
Yeah.
And then we didn't get there till 1 in the morning, and it was 87, humidity. You could just taste the sweat in the air of Houston. And that's when 1 in the morning, that's where it's best, right? It's at its coldest. So that was a long 18 hours, and obviously there's a time zone difference too. So it was crazy. And then I had to get up at 5 hours, 6 hours to do the morning.
Yeah. Now, was that the first time that you and your dad did something like that together, where he shared his experience and also you were able to share some of your experience?
That was the first time, which was something else. Last year, I spoke in New York City. It was with 2 other people, and that was wonderful. People close to my own age to do that, and then to do it with my dad was pretty special, because obviously he's been with me the whole time of the journey, but he had his own perspective that others, of course, don't have. And that was pretty cool. That's something I can cherish from then on out.
Yeah. He's really funny. Is he like that, or is that did the stage just bring that out of
He, my dad is a hoot. I've given people a warning or a heads up, and I don't know if anyone took that. I mentioned it last year. It was discussed sometime after New York City. Actually, I spoke to a couple of members on Smile Train, and my dad actually spoke in New York City um, at some point to the tables about a subject. This open forum we were doing. He made some people laugh. I made some people laugh. We were able to kind of have our own comedic style, and so I guess they took it as like a why don't we do something with parents and kids together? Usually it's younger kids and their parents,
Mm,
so they thought it'd be okay to have an adult with the parent because that's a whole different perspective. And so they decided my dad already knows how to speak in front of 30, 40 people, just like that. He's very comfortable with it. It's something I had to learn from him. I actually had to be comfortable speaking the way he can. So he could just do out of the blue like that.
yeah.
So it's natural.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes that comes with like age too. I feel like the older you get, the kind of less you care.
The confidence goes way up. He'll wear sweatpants every day and all that, which I'd love to get to that point. But yeah, that's heck. Even I'm not old, but like way closer to 30, I feel so much better about myself than I was at 2021. So there's a lot of truth to that. And I know when you get to mid 30s and up, usually you are kind of the way you are in a lot of ways. If you're comfortable around that age, you will continue to be that way, fortunately. So that's good news.
Yeah. And obviously, we shared that you were adopted and you do have family, or I don't know how connected you are still to Bulgaria, but I want to go back to when you were adopted or what you remember from Bulgaria. Like, what, or is that something that you blocked out?
So, for those that don't know, I studied graduate school for 3 years for counseling, a master's program, and even before I know that memory isn't really until you're about 4 or 5 is when you actually have concrete memory. So I was almost 3, so you're just at that age where you just believe whatever people say that happened, and then you think you remember that. So I don't have any memory at that point. But I did go back when I was 18. So 15 years later, when I was growing up, my dad told me your graduation gift for high school will be we get to go back. So that was a promise we had for a long time. And when I got back when I was 18, and it was that summer, it was like July time. It was either July or June. I went back to Bulgaria, and that was the first time I've been on an airplane ever since I
Mm.
left. So all that was very exciting, and it felt out of place a little bit because I feel like you could have put me in Sweden or Norway, just wherever environment. It could have just didn't really matter. And you could tell me all these stories and just I believe you kind of thing. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's a out of place kind of thing, and that's an interesting experience. So it's almost like not that you're not into it, but it's hard to almost buy it a little bit because everything's unfamiliar. So it's not really much different than you went to a city in America you've never been to, in a way. Amazing to be there. I have photos from long ago from then when I was there first, or growing up there at, that my family had. And so it was cool to see images that I saw as a kid in photos in person. I actually went back to they call it an orphanage. A lot of people have um, misconceptions of exactly what that is. It's not usually like the worst case scenario a lot of times, actually. And so I went back to that mother to child center, which is state funded kind of orphanage, and there were people there that knew me from 15 years ago that actually helped take care of me back then, which I was the first one to ever go back once I left. So that's what I was
Mm.
informed. So they thought that was really special for their part, just to see progress, to see doing well, and they're in part because it takes them. I wish I had more emotion that moment, and these are just that we don't speak each other's language at all. Fortunately, we still had our family friend for 25 plus years, Sven, uh, who helps with adoption agencies, but also he translates. And that was pretty special to be at the exact center I was at. And my dad, he donated money. We spent some time with him. as a thank you for taking care of me for pretty much half my life at that point when I was there.
Yeah.
So this is a lot about those people that they are. It's a to all the they're all women, to all the women especially, and to do what they did was incredible. To take care of all those kids and all the routines and the procedures and the health needs, all that every day, because it was actually a center for those who have different needs. So they were also there uh, for kids who are neurodivergent as well. Um, there were newborns that had their own medical challenges. I had to do a lot of research later in life about exactly what it was before I went there, and it was a state-funded place for those who need medical help, essentially.
Mm.
It's usually people whose parents can't afford to take care of.
Yeah. And what's the language that they speak in Bulgaria?
They're just Bulgarian, which is
Okay.
they do it in Cyrillic. It's an old one of the oldest languages in Europe, and it's like Russian. It's if you put it's French and French Canadian, Bulgarian,
Mhm.
Russian. It's kind of like
Yeah.
that. There's some words they know. There's definitely a lot of words they don't know each other, but they get an idea what they're talking about. Pretty
Did
hard
you
language to
learn
learn.
any of it?
I would love to. It's definitely there are some tutors in America that can do, of course, Russian, but Bulgarian it's just different enough where it's pretty hard to find a tutor that can really teach you that. And
Yeah.
I took 3 years of French in high school, and um, not the best way to learn it right because you gotta learn when you're younger. It's a lot easier, it becomes more natural, and it has to be more applied every day to really learn the language. And so Bulgarian is by far way harder than French or Spanish or anything like that.
Mm.
Mandarin is like the top tier hardest, but I think Bulgarian's that middle of not the easiest thing to learn. To learn, I know some words, but nothing I can really have a conversation.
Yeah. So ironically, I used to work in an adoption education center. It's a nonprofit organization. So we weren't an agency. We didn't place children or anything like that, but we provided resources and therapy for families, for adoptive families. And it's actually you're in DC. I used to live in Baltimore for about 10 years. It's
Of this
called
whole,
CASE, the Center for Adoption Support and Education. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
never
But
heard of it.
but yeah, they provide like resources for families. So I feel like I'm knowledgeable about adoption and that type of thing. And it's actually before I had Giselle and this kind of became my passion. I was passionate about children that were in care. And so sometimes like my questions might be pointed towards that a little bit, but obviously you were born with a cleft, right? And so did you get your repairs when you came to the US or were your repairs done in Bulgaria?
Yeah, so I had to I actually had to learn or how to read the adoption paperwork because I think for the longest time we may have had the information a little bit off. I think it was I had one surgery, which we always knew that, but the time when I had it, we had it incorrect. It was actually when I was 6 months old, is what the paperwork said. But that was still a little bit late than that because
Mhm.
when I came to America, they had to redo the whole thing because they actually said the surgery I had was just not a good surgery. And keep in mind, Bulgaria is 6 years removed from the Cold War. They finally became independent again from Russia. They were still transitioning. They were still financially a mess, and it was state funded, provided medical care. And Bulgaria is still top 10 of a poor country of Europe to this day. And so I'm sure the funding with the programs you've worked with were a lot better. So I came to America and DC Children's Hospital in DC was the hospital I was at. And Dr. Michael Boyaji took not much of a look and he's like, "Oh yeah, we can fix this. This is the easy part. Do it and all that." It's just his speech is going to be a challenge. Because I was 3 years old, I was not really doing a very good job speaking at all. In fact, the adoption paperwork said I was in reverse development, or I couldn't speak a whole lot or very well. They thought one surgery could fix it. Clearly, I know that's a misconception with Cleft. There's definitely a lot more than just one surgery, as you are going through as a parent, all the things you have to go through in the future, and it's overwhelming for any parent to hear. Obviously, like you've when you work through those adoption agencies, to hear stories of parents who can't afford and that's exactly what happened to me. That my birth parents couldn't afford it. They were hoping for one surgery, just like anybody else. And I looked at the paperwork and said it was a physician uh, that they used, a physician for the center, saying he needs more. Essentially, is what the paperwork said to them. It said you have to give more care. You have to do that, and so that's they. The birth parents didn't want to. They did if they could, as long as they could. That they finally decided to do that for me. With be put up for adoption. I had 6 total surgeries, so it relates to Cleft.
Oh, okay. Okay, so did your birth parents feel like you had additional medical needs and that's why you were placed into adoption, or were there several other factors that played into that?
As far as I know, I read the paperwork. The physician was pretty much saying like, he needs more, and I look at it this way: read just the paperwork was just like, well, if they're having a state-funded center doing this, my birth parents were not well off, and actually, most people in Bulgaria at that point were not well off. And to this day, they're better, but still not great. So I really think it was their expenses was the biggest factor, knowing they if they keep me, they're never going to be able to get what I need and never feel
Mm.
my health sake. I do know there was also on the paperwork, one of the things was saying return to orphanage for social reasons. When I went back when I was 18, they said I was a happy kid. I was pretty popular in the center with other kids there, of the women there that were being translated. I was like, okay, if I wasn't the problem. Because I thought it was initially I was just causing a problem and I was just a ruckus and a difficult child. But then it turned out because I'm Romani,
Mm.
because I'm mixed, and that's where they had also some social um, problems, which I took the 23andMe, did the other one, the oh god, what's it called? The
Ancestry.
thank you, I had thank you. That's why you're
I did
that's why
that
you're
one
gonna
too.
say right there, yeah. And so I did both those. They both confirmed I am Romani, like 100%. Which the derogatory term is gypsy. I always use that word just so people understand what Romani is, um, but 100% Romani, and so even to this day, they're unfortunately treated like second class citizens. But I was wondering for a long time what that meant, and it actually means because you can read between the lines, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption where I'm Romani, I'm mixed, they're not accepted in most of the world, especially in Europe, and you have a child who was born with a birth defect like that, which less developed countries are going to think mythological folklore hoo ha.
Mm.
And that's true to this day in a lot of countries, unfortunately, still. They're not as developed. And you got that and Romani, that's a double whammy. And so I feel like, because I was actually sent to the center, back to the parents, to the center, back then last time I was dropped off. So I actually went back and
Mm.
forth a couple times because they dropped me off to get surgery or to get care, back, kept me for a while, and then they had probably social issues, other problems, so they thought to just put me back for, again, return to orphanage for social reasons. I think down the line there's problems with the community. I feel like those my birth parents probably had problems with the peers, probably had
Mm.
problems just deal with people all the time, and possibly safety, for all we know.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And so it's really not necessarily you or the children that were in care with you. It's really the adults that were all having these issues, and they just placed this label on you as, oh, this child has some, this child has this birth defect, as along with having these quote unquote social issues, when in fact it's
yeah,
really,
just by ethnicity. Yeah.
it's just, yeah. And you need a few more surgeries than what they had realized. And I think
Mhm.
even in 1996, even in the United States, we weren't as developed as we are now. So I can't imagine what that was like as well. Do your birth parents have any siblings? And were you able to connect with your birth mother or your siblings when
Um,
you went back?
yeah, I, far as I know, I think I have an older sibling. I think it's a brother, I believe. Paperwork, I can't quite figure that out. At least that's what my dad believed. I think so, but I know you know this fluently more than I would. Most of the time, if not all the time, international adoptions are usually closed adoption. You gotta handle its own country laws, and that changes over time. So, for I understand, at that time in the mid-90s, is that I actually had more information than kids later in life. Apparently, they got less and
Mm.
less information they were given to the early 2000s. Those who were born in Bulgaria early 2000s and try to get adopted or later life don't have as much information that even I have. I do have plenty of information about my birth parents, their names, and all that, but I was told by the translators that it would take months. You gotta go through a lot of legal court procedures, and then even then, there has to be mutual agreement. I believe he told me like I'd have to have some life emergency to kind of speed it up, pretty much. If there's life medical emergencies, there might be a way to get there faster, but otherwise they have to have a real reason, kind of thing. And
What do you
cut
mean
through.
to reach out to them?
Yeah, you can't even just simple have
You
that
can't even
access.
look them up on Facebook? That's
Well,
wild.
you can definitely do that. It's more of
Okay.
just like in the country itself.
Oh,
Uh,
to actually meet with
to
them,
meet
like to
them, you
look
actually,
for them.
yeah,
Yeah,
you can.
but you can go online and try to like communicate with
Sure,
them.
yeah,
Yeah. Have you
I
tried that?
absolutely. I've I can't find them. Um,
Yeah.
they're apparently my name is like John Smith Johnson over there. It's pretty common.
Mm.
What my birth name was and what their names are, so that doesn't really help either. They're not distinctive, and I do unfortunately wonder a lot of Armanis might also be trying to protect themselves online. It's very possible.
Oh, I could see. Yeah.
Because a
And
lot of times I keep searching the people, their names, and the birth parents' names, and all that. A lot of them look, at least initially, not as Romani. Kind of wonder if that has something to do with it too. I don't know about their access. I know Bulgaria's like 80+% internet access, so it's pretty well accessible. I just don't know, or is pretty close to American, but I just don't know. I do wonder about that a little bit. How much do they want to be out there? Obviously, what they experienced back then, and for all the later in that. I can't. I've been trying, and they're pretty hard to find. Um, but
yeah.
yeah, like the legal stuff, that's just in person stuff. Well, yeah, you have freedom to just look whoever up online. It's just more of reaching out, and even if they wanted to, I would assume it's not just as simple because they're just technically in the eyes of law, they're not my parents because they're fully given full custody to my parents. So that's where it gets tricky. And then again, every country is different with their laws.
Yeah, of
They can
course.
make it as hard as they want.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they aren't just based on what you have shared, just going back and forth, right? Like the
Yeah.
dropping you off and then coming back to get you and then eventually having to make that really tough decision. I can't imagine that that you are still not on their minds and what that experience is like for them and for both of
Yeah.
you. I know that it's like really challenging. And I
Yeah.
asked about the sibling because we do, I think, in Cleft think about one of the things that moms think about is a lot is like, how did this happen, right? Where we're perfectly quote unquote normal, right? Family. And then all of a sudden you receive this news that your child is going to be cleft affected. And what does that look like for your family? And we want to know, like, we have questions about where could this have possibly come from? And I've spoken to a lot of families where they do have siblings that, multiples, right? They have two cleft affected sons, or they themselves are cleft affected and their child. Do you have any information about whether one of your parents may have been cleft affected or anyone in your family may have been impacted by this? And I know that's a long shot,
Yeah,
but
no, I was lucky just to get their names, and I have a little bit of government information about them, but besides that, that's all I have, and that's again better than even all I would even have. I do know, I actually know how old they were when they had me, and I actually figured that out based on the government system in Bulgaria of the information I have, and my mom was shockingly like 21, and my
mm,
dad was like 30 or 30 or pretty well, I think he was 30. And so
mm,
that kind of surprised me a little bit when I read that because I don't know how common it is, but it's not that unheard of a younger mom for some reason, some health complications. I know Bulgaria is not the healthiest environment. There's no one cause for cleft. You can be perfectly healthy. The age doesn't really isn't a factor really overall, but they say it's one of the many factors environment. Who knows about the health? I don't. Who knows of how I end up having bilateral cleft lip and palate? But I don't. That's really all I know of them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Just their birthdays and stuff like that.
And then moving in like here to did you move direct like from Bulgaria to the DC area
Ye-
immediately?
Yeah, so I moved to Arlington. I grew up there up until I didn't leave until I went to college in Ohio. Shout out to Bowling Green. Then I went there. Then I went back to Virginia. Um, and then I decided to go just explore in Florida. Lived there for a bit. Back to Virginia. Then I lived in Utah for a bit, and then I ended up in Delaware. So I wasn't actually moving till I got to college, and then I thought I was gonna settle in Virginia, and then just so I moved all around, and then my family moved to Delaware in 2018. I was still in Utah, and then I moved there later for grad school.
Yeah. I think that you have two identities, right? Being well, you have multiple, you have so many identities.
I don't know
But
who I
I
am. Yeah, half the time. Yeah.
sure you do. But I guess like in thinking you were so young when you came to the United States, when did your parents start talking to you about your differences, more specifically like you cleft, right?
Mm,
Hey, you're gonna have these surgeries, or when did you start asking questions? Do you remember what moment that was, or if there was like some pivotal thing that happened to you that made you start thinking about what's going on here?
Yeah. So I came to the U.S. As far as I could tell, I was a pretty easygoing, and then I went to preschool and all that, and then people started to bring out those differences of me that I wasn't noticing at all. Like, you come and have you lucky, you're not aware of yourself really. You thought whatever you have is as normal as anybody else. And then once I got picked on and pointed out and all these things, I got from happy to I cried all the time. I cried easily growing up, and then I would start to wonder like why. Like, I would notice, okay, I've noticed more from others, but others are just left just fine. And that's why I started to notice like why am I getting kind of picked on more than others. Um, and then you look in the mirror more, and you try to see what they're pointing out, and then you notice your differences more. Uh, for me, like roof from my mouth, for example, I thought it was normal. Apparently, it's not. Mine's not smooth at all. It'll always be like that. It'll be like little bumps or a little like hill, towards the back of it. And I thought my teeth and other things are normal. Apparently, that wasn't. I think it's when I started to ask questions, probably by the end of kindergarten. I get frustrated when I talked. Like people would make fun of me how I talked growing up. So I think it was a accumulation of some of that. So probably by the time I was 5 or 6, I was getting surgeries. So I've had surgeries for my thumb, for example. My two thumbs were trigger thumbs, as they call it, so lock thumbs. That was fixed. I think like literally when I got to the U.S. That was like the next surgery, I believe, and then because that was a quick extra joint, that's an easy fix. It takes an hour or something like that. But I got that fixed. I had to get the lip repaired. I get the bone graft. Had to get the phalangeal flap surgery. Um, and it was all I promised other things. But it was pretty much redoing a whole cleft lip and palate surgery to then do that over again. Did all the other stuff I needed to get done. The last
What's
big
the
one was
first surgery
yeah.
that you remember?
I see.
Like where you're like, okay, I'm having having surgery.
I think I was like 7 or 8. I'm trying to remember what exactly this. I don't know if it was a phalangeal flap. It might have been that. I remember at least there was like a small table next to me, and it was like the medical equipment, and the guy didn't know how to hide the tools. Children's hospital, like, they were supposed to know how to handle kids, like, and so he did. do a great job presenting the tools to me, and so I freaked out. And then my dad's like,
Mm.
"What are you doing? You're not supposed to just straight up like, here's tools in your face. I'm gonna, get in your face, um, cut you up." So it was. I remember that moment when I was freaking out about that, and eventually put me to sleep, all that stuff. I do remember that. I do remember the bone graft, which I think, honestly, now I think about it, yes, I feel like I've been shoving some of it out when I was 5 or 6. I think other traumas, other things have covered it, kind of thing. But definitely the bone graft and the other one before that. Because the bone graft, I remember I was in the hospital, I was in 4th grade, which I usually like your 9 to 11 or so is the normal age for bone grafts. I remember I had a limp for my hip. I remember I was in the hospital for a couple of days of that. I was watching wrestling. I was watching there's a movie with Cuba Gooding Jr. in it with the husky dogs, the sled dogs, all. I remember all that kind of stuff. That was the last one I can really remember that was related to that.
Yeah, that's the one that everyone says, bone graft. That's the first one that I remember having, because not only do you, as you shared, like you're up in that age where you start developing memories, but the thing that's unique about bone graft is like hurting in two areas. So it's like your hip hurts, but then also your mouth hurts. So it's like waking up from that. It's like weird. It's like my mouth hurts, but I also need crutches.
Hmm.
And like people talk about that a lot. And what did your parents say to all of this? What was their response and their way of like supporting you through not knowing what was going on and why you were feeling different?
Yeah, I was adopted. My own parents kind of thought like everybody else, like, okay, he'll just have like a surgery or two and he'll be fine. Apparently, the agency sold me, gave me a pitch that, oh, he'll just one fix, he's fine. Um, and so, fortunately, bliss ignorance actually probably got me over here a little bit. And then they realized all the other things I needed. So they got a whole lot of education. And I know my dad was actually one of the people involved with international agencies. He eventually went to meetings and helped a lot of parents and all that kind of stuff. So he got hands-on involved to understand of that perspective. My parents got to learn all the medical needs, and it was overwhelming. I mean, can you imagine a sense of, okay, 1 or 2, it turned out 5 or 6 or 7, and all the costs of that stuff. Fortunately, we had really good insurance. I had dental work for 5 years. I had speech therapy starting when I was like first, second grade. So it was just like one after the other. I feel like every year was just like, gotta fix this, gotta fix that. So I think I know it was hard. I'm sure it was hard though. It was hard on me, and it was always easy to find the levity because you're also, while I get your hip and your mouth feeling in that way, you're also trying to learn how to socialize at the same time. Yourself, how do you explain things to other people? You're pretty much, you have to be like everybody else, and then you have to do all this extra work, and nobody knows how to tell you how to handle it. Uh, and that's really hard.
Was there
What?
anything that they said that was helpful? I know I've heard people that have been on the show as well. They said my mom tried to help, but she very good intentioned, right? But it wasn't always the best. But there were things that she did say that helped me feel better.
Yeah, my mom was my biggest cheerleader. And it's like I couldn't do wrong. She'd always be supportive and like everything I did. So I think the constantly or constant encouragement was a big factor to help me get through that. Um, Sometimes you're not getting rewarded for doing the right things at first. So I know my parents say it's gonna come in. It's always gonna be like this. I think that helped a lot. Learning it's not permanent. And as people got used to me, I hate to say it that way, but as people got used to me as I got older, things did get better. Um, Understanding the process, I think that helped a lot. I think because my dad has always been like, here's what it is. And I always appreciated that honesty. That helped a lot as well because it helped me find grounding of it to how to handle it. I think so. I think being realistic and honest is a big thing. When I was 5, they said, yeah, you're adopted. Like, normalize it. Wait that much longer, so it's part of your growing up. And they did that the same thing with my surgeries and medical needs. Well, that really helped a lot. They didn't want to already ostracize me or a way I already felt ostracized and all that. Make a big deal out of it. It's that transference of they are calm, they're able to handle what they can handle, and you'll be able to transfer from that. And they obviously be without them with all that.
Yeah. Did they adopt any additional children or have any birth children themselves?
Yeah, so my sister is biological. She's older than me, and my parents weren't able to have kids or struggled to have kids after my sister. And that's where they thought about the adoption, because at least that's a guarantee. And so they were able to get me with the whole kind of recent hooplas about Eastern Europe about around that time. And my mom actually saw a picture of me, and she's like, okay, well, she was sold on me just from that. So I would be here literally without my mom in a different way, not biologically, but she really was the one that she actually traveled to get me while my dad stayed. And then when I went back to Bulgaria, then my dad went with me that time. But yeah, in terms of growing up throughout it, I didn't have anyone until middle school. I met someone with a cleft, but we never really connected or anything like that. So I would do two people from birth to 18 of in my school, pretty much. I didn't have anything else, and I never really knew them at all. There was always a lone factor, even when you had friends and all that. It's like there's this corner I have to be by myself, and so to have this community now is incredible. And while I'm sure I wish I had it growing up, I'm glad I have it now, and I do. And to be on this
Yeah.
platform is amazing.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate hearing your perspective and stuff. And like your sister, what was it like growing up with her and just like what was her response to all of the medical needs that you had and the way that you interacted with her? Did she have a lot of questions about your cleft and that type of thing?
Yeah, like so my sister, has her own medical needs. I understand we saw that needed to be priorities. She had her own going on. My mom did, I did as well. In that regard, we were all focused on ourselves a little bit at times because we had to with our own issues. But my sister has always been very kind and understanding with knowing the perspective with her medical needs and feeling different and left out there. She was always been able to empathize my feeling towards that for my own version of it. And always grateful for my sister to be the big sister, protect me, all that typical stuff. So I definitely appreciate her with all that. And she's always been very good about that. I knew she tries to keep me grounded if I get too full of myself, whatever. She does a good job of that. And we've always said in my family, humor is my dad's and I, we're all about humor. We always have to make a joke about a whole lot of things. And I feel like I grew up a smart aleck. Like I was just a smart aleck gonna go as one. And so humor was definitely one that actually helped me socialize a bit. And then of course, when you make people laugh and you start to gain friends, then you don't stop making jokes. Of course, school, maybe I should have calmed down a little bit, but it got me
Yeah.
to break out and build that confidence a little bit too.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Do you think, I guess, who were like people in your life that kind of help you build this confidence that you have? And how were you able to finally be able to accept who you are, like all parts of you?
Yeah, it took a while. Uh, so I would tell anyone it really is a process. It's not just hourly people accepting you, also accepting yourself too. Because when you're told by medical staff, we got to fix this and fix that, you're like, okay, I have a problem. I have things that aren't normal. And that can kill your self esteem for the longest time. And then when you're getting that fixed at 5 or 6, you're like, okay, that's fixed. We got more problems. I got to fix that, 7, 8, and so forth. What helped me was finding my community my own way. So playing sports was a big thing for me in regard that your teammates are in a way forced to be a good teammate with you, but get to learn how to be a good teammate, teamwork, and people in a way get forced to actually get to see you as a person in a way because they're your teammate. And it's building camaraderie. I love playing sports. That was a big one for me to build confidence. Finding your passions. I do my music and my movies and my hockey inside out. Find those icebreakers. You're able to find commonalities with people that definitely build the confidence. Like people are more in common with you than you think. You're not as out from everybody else as you think. And so finding those commonalities was really a big help. And when I was 12 or 13, I wanted to pursue hockey. So hockey, build that confidence because it's something I knew I was knowledgeable of, and people would come to me about my opinions and stuff like that at some point. I built confidence a lot in families, relatives, uncles, grandpa, my dad, my mom, my sister, some friends I still have to this day, like Josh and Alex, who I've known since kindergarten, second grade. I've had people from college I'm still friends with. and then those post college. So I'm very grateful for everyone I've had that I still have. Um, I don't know how they put up with me, but they somehow, with all these years, they have. If I do community, really, that's the thing. Whether it's movies, art, books,
Mm,
people do want to find something that they care about with each other. They want someone to talk to about it because that gets you through the day or the week. And I know so much music, and it got me to a point where I started learning guitar, and then you all of a sudden open this avenue of other people that knew how to play instruments. So like when you are passionate about something, you learn about other passions and you'll build your world around you.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And what is something that you wish people knew about individuals that are affected by cleft lip and palate in general?
There's always more than one surgery. I know that's drilled. Some have five or six. That's about the average. What I had, some have 10 plus. I would say the amount of everyday challenges is a lot more than people realize, I think, with that, because let's say you have like a customer service job, or let's say you have to deal with people in public, uh, or you have to do a lot of phone calls at work. Your speech affects a lot of that. People will have their impression of you. They'll mishear you, how you announce or enunciate things, and that gets
Mm,
frustrating. To this day, I say the word phone and someone misheard me say photo or something. That still happens to people with clefs. So I think it's the little microaggressions that still do happen.
mm,
Um, I think it's in your 20s and 30s even. I have good self-esteem. I'm okay with my cleft and all that. Thankfully, I have a full beard and all, but I think it's still a challenge for those. It's not. It's more than just your childhood coming up. It's the fact of what if I carry this condition, have kids, and I pass down genetically
mm,
my problems. And I think
yeah,
that's something people don't realize the little bit of fear of dating for those with a cleft. And we live in. I've always said this is the most full of yourself ego world we ever live in at this point. With social media, all that, and ironically, we're on social media, but it's that's also heightened. A lot of superficial qualities are more heightened now uh,
yeah,
on the spotlight, and then that's something with clefts as well to as an issue. For me, dental work, I had to deal with my teeth the rest of my life. That for me is my personal issue that is frustrating. I have to do more work I feel with my brushing and flossing than other people to get the same results they do, and I feel like mine are more acceptable. Mouth
yeah,
breathing. I played sports growing up with one working nostril the whole time,
mm,
which I don't know how I did it. I had pretty good endurance still, despite it, but it's so it can be working out, exercising, it could be a lot of things. Could be if some people might still have eating problems with it. I don't, but between sleeping, breathing, especially dental work, it's expensive, and the frustration socially sometimes is just all the things I would say.
yeah. I worry about that with Giselle, my daughter, because I don't know, lately she has trouble breathing at night. And I don't know, during the day she's fine. But I'm like, is your nose operating the way it's supposed to be? It's definitely something that I've been looking at. But yeah, and I've also heard about the dental work being a big issue and having to work twice as hard in order to achieve the same results or to just have like healthy teeth, right? So that's definitely something that I don't think that people think of as much. They always think about lip repair and they it's like a set it and forget it type of thing, which we all know
Right?
is like not the truth. We all wish that was the case, but it just isn't. Are you done with surgeries?
Yeah, thankfully, I last surgery was my nose. My only regret, I would say, that if you're not sure to get surgery or not, I wish I got my surgery done right at 18 for my nose.
Mm,
Um, that's probably one of the biggest things. I can actually breathe more normally. It's starting to become muscle memory and how to learn through your nose or breathe through your nose. And it would have made such a difference at 18 with confidence and other things. I had a deviated nose, a cleft nose. And the challenge is also add with people don't realize I have to get a specialist actually for a nose. I had to get a cleft nose surgeon. He knows how to do nose surgeries in general for anyone, but he also had the experience of dealing with cleft palates. I actually went to a regular doctor for a nose, and he said, no, you actually need someone who knows both, which is almost impossible. Patrick Byrd was a doctor in Baltimore, actually. John Hopkins, he's now in a clinic. Um, But that's how I got it fixed. And that's another challenge, but that's the next question. I'm done with it, fortunately. I did have one scary surgery right before that where I actually was related to the bone graft. I had an emergency medical issue with the dental or dentist. I was in Utah. I was in Utah, and they found after the bone graft there was still like this tooth behind the graft, but it was
Mm,
hidden behind my bridge. So the problem is you have four fake teeth in the front. You got the bone graft, and my whole bone graft area, my palate is. I like no bone left. There's nothing there. I've had
mm,
dentists say you have almost nothing there left. So they had to pull out this bone remaining where the bridge was. So this I don't know how he. I don't understand how he did it. You have to take out something in such a beat up area for so long, and avoid this bridge of fake teeth around it. And so he pulled it out, got the bone out. I remember I came to the dentist, all his teeth cleaned. He's like, "Nope, you're gonna come in against the roof." And there was another time in Virginia. So before that, I got my bridge. Again, I thought it was gonna be a routine. I had a chipped tooth from a brittle tooth I had in the roof of my mouth because cleft palate problems. And then when I got moved forward and broke the chip of that, the guy was like, "You're gonna need bridge teeth." With my regular teeth, I left with my four teeth on. They they shaved it due to the nub essentially, and then they up until these two front teeth that were the hooks, and they put the bridge on it. It was pretty scary to just go do that and to get used to that. I remember I looked like Nosferatu, honestly, like at the mirror when they took. Eventually, I get my four teeth replaced, whatever. But I always made the joke. It's like I got a deviated nose, I got fake teeth. I guess I'm a hockey player. I always wanted to be. Yeah, but it was scary stuff. So those things feel those are maybe extremes, but what I'm saying is it's continuous. Even after you're an adult, there's problems having cleft that are life going. Like that
yeah.
area
What
having
has
its all.
been the hardest part? What's been the hardest part of your whole journey, right? When you think about your adoption, being cleft affected, just having to be in school and being quote unquote different, and what's been the hardest part of your journey?
I just collectively, if I had a whole just simple theme, it's just I was just like meant to have a chip on my shoulder sort of thing. I don't know what it is because it's like whether you're labeled or targeted or presumptions about you before they even know who the heck you are. I think that's what really the biggest challenge is that there's all these like yeah, I wasn't really given a chance to really present myself at all. I think that's been the most
Mm,
consistent theme because I was born in Romani, which is I'm actually a third Caucasian, Middle Eastern, and South Asian all at once. Um, Split into three races, and but I myself as white throughout my life. Really, I list myself as just two or more, or just I don't even list that anymore at all. So I just leave that blank. But it's just like no matter what I did was like there's always something wrong with me. And it's, I grew up Jewish, so I had excluded even within Jewish community because my mom wasn't Jewish. So I was never fully accepted in Judaism. I had my bar
mm,
mitzvah, all that, and I Ramadi. So then if I lived anywhere else outside of America, who knows? To be quite honest, it's kind of the scary part. If I grew up in other places, big Ramadi, and I got my birth defect, so it's like picture I was getting ripped for something at any point, or adoption, right? There's so many things I could have got hit on, so I just say that's been my whole theme.
yeah.
So
What has your journey taught you? Just in closing, what's the lesson in all of this, or what's the takeaway? And I know we're still pretty young, so there's so much more to
I don't
come,
feel you.
hopefully positive.
My body,
But
yeah, my body started to think about it, but yeah, it's. I would say it's gonna. I don't want to make it sound cheesy, but it's like you are who you are. The ones that will stay, the ones that will don't. You will filter out people who really actually matter, versus who not. So I know plenty of friends would say, "Yeah, he's eccentric, he's goofball." Honestly, he might look serious at first, so you realize he's goofy and all that. And they still stick with me for reasons I don't know. Um, I make them laugh once in a while. That might be keep around. I buy him a gift, maybe that keeps him around. I don't know, but it's being just what you like finds your community, and then people realize, oh, I'm a little weird too, or I have my own oddities, and then you can be weird together. And that's how that kind of came to be. you be yourself, you're outgoing, you know who you are, that people feel like they can be comfortable for themselves and be themselves. And I think
Mm,
that's how they filter each other out. If you're something that people don't understand or they can't relate, even as let's say you're a decent person, I've noticed this. Like I try to be a decent person and make someone comfortable because they know they're not. They're always
mm,
self-checking themselves, like, you know what, I'm not. I lack certain qualities, and then they push
that's
you away because they're not.
hilarious.
It's uncomfortable for them because they are uncomfortable. They
Yeah.
have to face themselves, and they don't want to face themselves. I think there's truth to that. Um, I say be a good person, find community, and the people you like will actually matter. And then people will come and go again. That's because you had them the time you need them. Now you don't. I've had friends from. I have a friend Josh from kindergarten, 26 years. I have Alex for 23 years. I have a lot of people who I still keep attached for 10 plus years. And those are the
Yeah.
people to keep. And I want people
Yeah.
to realize that there are people you only know for a few years. They're actually way better than people you've known for 6, 7 years. So it's not always about time. There are people I've known recently that I was like, man, I wish I knew you the last 10 years, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think that we're become so connected, right? I always tell people the club community is the most positive community that I've been a part of. I think that, yeah, we're just really welcoming, right? And just really supportive of one another, very non judgmental. And I think that that's something that's really special. But I just want to thank you so much, Sam, for being on the podcast today and sharing your story with us and being so vulnerable because I know it's difficult to talk about these things as well. So just thank you for being on.
no, thank you so much for having me. And I remember when I went to Cleft Con, first time I cried in quite a long time. Uh, the Cleft community has been incredible. I wish I had it. I'm grateful to be in it, and it's made such an impact. You feel I remember the first time being in a room of majority Cleft was the most incredible thing. I hope people can keep in touch with me. I have an Instagram movie like Ramadi. It's all one word. Um, and like I said, it's an honor to be on this platform and get to know you. And thank you for having me on.
Yeah. And we'll put Sam's Instagram in the show notes as well so that you all can get connected with him. And thank you all for listening to the Our Forever Smiles, Clef Mom Diaries, and Support podcast. Be sure to subscribe and submit a review of the podcast wherever you listen. I hope that you've enjoyed this audio experience. Maybe you cried a little, laughed a little, but more importantly, I hope that you feel a little piece of reassurance and even joy in your journey. Talk to you next week.